Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars. The U's horizon was far from Earth, exploring new worlds as humans had done for over 100 years. Jake was tired but happy. His crew had just finished mapping 3 new solar systems that could become homes for human families. "Captain, we're getting a message from Admiral Davis," said Lieutenant Kim Park from her station. She looked worried. Jake walked over to her. "Put it through to my office." Admiral Carl Davis appeared on the screen. His gray hair and serious face made him look older than his 60 years. He had been dealing with alien politics for most of his life. "Jake, we need to talk," Davis said. "Have you seen any strange ships in your area?" "What kind of strange ships?" Jake asked. "Zelphic ships. Our scouts are reporting movement near human space. The Council thinks we're being paranoid, but I'm not so sure." Jake frowned. The Zelphic were a race of large, lizard-like beings who controlled a big part of the galaxy. They were known for being aggressive and mean. Most other species tried to stay away from them. "I haven't seen anything yet," Jake said, "but I'll keep my eyes open." "Good. Report anything unusual right away. And Jake, be careful out there." The message ended. Jake sat back in his chair, thinking. Humans had been part of the Galactic Council for 150 years. In all that time, they had never fought a real war with anyone. Humans were known as peaceful people who liked to trade and explore. Many alien species thought humans were weak because they always tried to talk instead of fight. Dr. Lisa Grant walked into Jake's office. She was his best friend and the ship's expert on alien life. Lisa was smart and kind, always trying to understand other species instead of judging them. "I heard about the Admiral's call," she said, sitting down. "Are you worried?" Jake nodded. "The Zelphic have been getting more aggressive lately. They've taken over 6 new systems in the past year. The Council does nothing because they're afraid." "Maybe they're just expanding their territory," Lisa said. "Not all species want to fight." "The Zelphic do," Jake replied. "They think might makes right. They see our peaceful ways as weakness." Far away on Earth, Senator Maya Johnson was having the same worries. She represented humanity in the Galactic Council, a job that was getting harder every day. The Council met on a huge space station called Unity, where representatives from 200 different species tried to work together. Maya walked into the Council chamber for the daily meeting. The room was enormous, with seats for all the different alien species. Some were small and flew, others were huge and had to be kept in special tanks. Maya took her place at the human section, feeling small among so many strange beings. High Commander Vexstar of the Zelphic Empire stood up to speak. He was 8 feet tall, with dark green scales and sharp teeth. His yellow eyes looked mean and hungry. "The Zelphic Empire continues to grow strong," he said in his deep, scary voice. "We take what we need and protect what is ours. Some species in this galaxy are too weak to deserve the worlds they claim." Maya felt her stomach turn. She knew Vexstar was talking about humans and other peaceful species. "Commander Vexstar," Maya said, standing up, "the Council was created so all species could live together in peace. Taking worlds by force goes against everything we stand for." Vexstar looked at Maya and laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "Peace is for the weak, human. Your species has been lucky so far, but luck does not last forever." Other Council members shifted in their seats. Everyone could feel the tension in the room. Maya wanted to say more, but she knew it would only make things worse. Meanwhile, on the farming world of New Eden, Dr. Amy Roberts was taking care of sick children at the local hospital. New Eden was one of humanity's most important worlds, home to over 2 million people. Most of them were farmers who grew food for other human colonies. Amy loved her job. She had dedicated her life to helping children get better when they were sick. The hospital on New Eden was one of the best in human space, and families came from other worlds to get treatment for their kids. Dr. Roberts called Nurse Jenny White. The Peterson family is here for their daughter's checkup. Amy smiled and went to see her patient. Little Sally Peterson was 5 years old and had been born with a heart problem. Amy had been taking care of her since birth. "How are you feeling today, Sally?" Amy asked. "Good. I ran around the farm yesterday and didn't get tired," Sally said with a big smile. Amy's heart felt warm. This was why she became a doctor. But as she looked out the hospital window, she saw something that made her worried. Strange ships had been seen in the sky lately. They didn't look like human ships or any of the friendly alien ships that usually visited New Eden. Commander Ben Taylor was in charge of keeping New Eden safe. He only had a small group of soldiers and a few defensive weapons. New Eden was a peaceful world that had never needed much protection. Ben looked at the reports on his desk. More strange ships had been spotted near the edge of the solar system. They never came close enough to identify, but they were definitely watching. "Sir," said Sergeant Mike Chun, walking into Ben's office, "the scouts are back." They couldn't get close to the unknown ships, but they got some pictures. Ben looked at the pictures on his computer screen. The ships were big and had a mean look to them. They reminded him of Zelthic designs, but he couldn't be sure. "Send these to Admiral Davis right away," Ben ordered, "and double our patrols." Back on the UES horizon, Jake was reading reports from all over human space. The same story was being told everywhere. Strange ships watching human worlds. Alien traders being less friendly. Something was happening, and it wasn't good. Lisa came to the bridge with her own report. "Jake, I've been studying the data from all our colonies. The pattern is clear. Someone is watching us, studying us. The question is why," Jake said. "Maybe they're planning something," Lisa said quietly. Jake looked out at the stars again. Humans had been lucky for so long. They had built a peaceful civilization among the stars. But Jake had a bad feeling that their luck was about to run out. In the distance, hidden from human sensors, a large Zelthic fleet was gathering. High Commander Vexstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at pictures of human worlds. To him, humans looked soft and weak. Their cities had no walls. Their children played in open fields. Their soldiers were few and poorly armed. "Prepare the attack fleets," Vexstar ordered his officers. "It is time to show the galaxy what happens to the weak." The storm was coming, and humanity had no idea how bad it would be. The attack came without warning. Commander Ben Taylor was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He ran to the command center of New Eden's defense station. The screens showed dozens of large ships dropping out of hyperspace around the planet. "Sir, we're being hailed," Sergeant Mike Chun said, his voice shaking. "Put it through," Ben ordered. High Commander Vexstar's ugly face appeared on the screen. His yellow eyes were full of hate and pleasure. "Humans of New Eden," Vexstar said in his deep voice, "your species has been judged weak and unworthy. Today, you will learn the price of weakness." "Commander Vexstar, this is an unprovoked attack," Ben said, trying to stay calm. "New Eden is a peaceful farming world. We have women and children here." Vexstar laughed that cold laugh. "Good. Children learn lessons best." The screen went black. Ben's heart was racing. He had 12 soldiers and 2 old defense cannons. The Zelthic had brought at least 50 warships. "Send a distress call to Admiral Davis," Ben ordered. "Tell all civilians to get to the emergency shelters." Dr. Amy Roberts was in the middle of surgery when the attack began. The hospital shook as Zelthic weapons hit the planet's surface. Amy looked at the little girl on the operating table. Sally Peterson's heart surgery was almost finished. "Doctor, we need to evacuate," Nurse Jenny White said, fear in her voice. "Not yet," Amy said. "I need 5 more minutes to save this child." Outside, Ben Taylor's small defense force was fighting desperately. The 2 defense cannons managed to damage one Zelthic ship before they were destroyed. Ben's soldiers fired their weapons at the enemy, but it was like throwing rocks at giants. "Fall back to the civilian shelters," Ben ordered over his radio. "Protect the families." But the Zelthic had other plans. Instead of just taking over the planet, they began bombing the cities. Schools exploded into flames. Hospitals were turned to rubble. The emergency shelters were targeted first. Amy finished Sally's surgery just as a Zelthic bomb hit the hospital. The building shook and part of the roof fell in. Amy threw herself over Sally's small body, protecting the child from the falling concrete. "Amy!" Jenny screamed. Blood was running down Amy's face, but she was still alive. "Get Sally to the evacuation." "Ships," Amy gasped. "I'll help the other children." But there were no evacuation ships. The Zelthic had destroyed them first. In the main city, families ran through the streets trying to find safety. But the Zelthic soldiers were landing now. They were huge 8-foot-tall lizards with advanced weapons. They didn't just shoot the running people. They hunted them like animals, enjoying the fear. Ben Taylor made his last stand at the elementary school. Inside were 300 children and their teachers. Ben and his remaining 5 soldiers stood at the front door. "This is Commander Taylor to any human ships in the area," he said into his radio. "New Eden is under attack. They're killing civilians. They're killing children. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us." The Zelthic soldiers came around the corner. Ben and his men opened fire. They managed to kill several of the lizard warriors before they were overwhelmed. Ben's last thought was of the children behind him. Captain Jake Morrison received Ben Taylor's message while his ship was 3 hours away from New Eden. Jake pushed his engines to maximum speed, but he knew he would be too late. "Captain, Doctor," Lisa Grant said, tears in her eyes. "I'm picking up hundreds of distress calls from the surface. They're not just attacking military targets. They're targeting schools, hospitals, homes." Jake's hands were shaking with anger. "How many people live on New Eden?" 2.3 million, Lisa said quietly. 400,000 of them are children. When the UE's horizon finally reached New Eden, the planet was burning. The once green farms were now black ash. The cities were ruins. Jake's sensors showed no life signs from the surface. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim Park said, her voice breaking, "I'm detecting Zelthic ships leaving the system. They're heading toward the colonies at Riverside and Meadowbrook." Jake realized with horror that this wasn't just one attack. The Zelthic were hitting multiple human worlds at the same time. Dr. Amy Roberts had managed to save 12 children before the hospital was completely destroyed. She led them through the burning streets, looking for somewhere safe to hide. But there was nowhere safe left on New Eden. Amy found an old storage building that was still standing. She hid the children inside and tried to contact the outside galaxy for help. Her emergency transmitter was damaged, but she managed to get through to a galactic news station. "This is Dr. Amy Roberts on New Eden," she said into the device. "The Zelthic Empire has attacked our world. They're not trying to conquer us. They're trying to kill every man, woman, and child. Please, someone help us." The transmission was weak, but it reached the Galactic News Network. Within hours, beings across the galaxy were watching footage of New Eden burning. They saw human children running from Zelthic soldiers. They saw hospitals and schools being bombed on purpose. Amy's transmission ended when a Zelthic patrol found her hiding place. She pushed the children behind her and faced the alien soldiers. "Please," she begged. "They're just children. They never hurt anyone." The Zelthic leader looked at the human children with cold eyes. "Weak species should not pollute the galaxy," he said. "Amy Roberts died protecting children who were not her." The 12 kids she had saved were killed minutes later. On Earth, Admiral Carl Davis was in an emergency meeting when the reports started coming in. New Eden was gone. Riverside Colony was gone. Meadowbrook was gone. Over 6 million humans were dead, most of them civilians. "Sir," his aide said, "Senator Johnson is calling from the Galactic Council. The other species are meeting to discuss the situation." Davis took the call. Maya Johnson appeared on his screen. She looked tired and defeated. "Carl, I've been arguing with the Council for 6 hours," Maya said. "Most of them are deeply concerned, but won't do anything. The Zelthic claim it was a necessary military action. They say humans were planning to attack them." "That's a lie," Davis said. "I know it's a lie." "You know it's a lie. But the Council is afraid of the Zelthic Empire. They won't risk a war to help us." Davis closed his eyes. He had spent his whole career believing in peace and diplomacy. He had always thought that reasonable beings could solve their problems by talking. "Maya," he said quietly, "recall all human representatives from the Council. Bring our people home. Carl, if we leave the Council, we'll have no diplomatic protection." "We have no diplomatic protection now," Davis replied. 6 million of our people are dead, and the galaxy wants to talk about it. When Captain Jake Morrison landed on what was left of New Eden, he walked through streets filled with bodies. He saw the burned remains of schools and hospitals. He found Commander Ben Taylor's body still at the elementary school entrance. Jake knelt beside his friend's body. Behind Ben, inside the school, Jake found 300 small bodies. The children had been killed after Ben died. The Zelthic had made sure there were no survivors. Lisa Grant found Jake there an hour later. He was sitting in the ruins, holding the body of a little girl. Lisa recognized her from the medical records. It was Sally Peterson, the 5-year-old, with the heart problem that Dr. Roberts had been treating. "Jake," Lisa said softly, "we need to go. Admiral Davis is calling all ships home." Jake stood up slowly. His face was hard and cold, nothing like the peaceful explorer he had been that morning. "Lisa," he said in a voice she had never heard before, "send a message to Davis. Tell him Captain Morrison is coming home. And tell him we need to talk about what happens next." As the U.E.'s horizon left the burning ruins of New Eden, Jake looked back one last time. The Zelthic had wanted to send a message to the galaxy about human weakness. But they had made a terrible mistake. They had just shown humanity what they were truly capable of when they were no longer trying to be peaceful dot in the depths of space. Admiral Davis was receiving similar reports from other human captains. The rage in their voices was something he had never heard before. These were not the same peaceful humans who had joined the Galactic Council 150 years ago. Davis made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. He activated a communication system that most humans didn't even know existed. "This is Admiral Davis to all Human Defense Command stations," he said. "Implement Protocol 7. Recall all ships. Activate all sleeping assets. The age of human peace is over." Across human space, on worlds that the galaxy thought were simple farms and research stations, hidden doors began to open. The sleeping giant was waking up, and it was very, very angry. President Dan Clark stood before the human assembly on Earth. The room was filled with representatives from every human world. Their faces showed anger, sadness, and something else that had not been seen in human politics for over a century: the desire for war. "My fellow humans," President Clark began, "3 days ago, the Zelthic Empire murdered 6.7 million of our people. Men, women, and children who never harmed anyone. The galaxy has offered us thoughts and prayers. Today, I offer them something else." He paused and looked at each face in the room. "Today, I declare that humanity will no longer pretend to be what we are not. For 150 years, we have chosen to be peaceful. We have chosen to be diplomatic. We have chosen to be kind. The galaxy mistook our choice for weakness. Today, they learned the difference." In the back of the room, Dr. Frank Miller smiled grimly. He had been waiting for this day for 30 years. As the head of the Human Advanced Research Division, Frank knew secrets that would terrify the galaxy. After the meeting, Frank walked to his office deep underground. Few people knew that beneath Earth's capital city was a complex of laboratories and factories that stretched for miles. The elevator took him down 20 floors to a level that did not exist on any public map. "Good morning, Dr. Miller," said Chief Engineer Kate Lewis. She was standing next to something covered by a large white sheet. "Are you ready to show them what we've really been building?" Frank nodded. Kate pulled away the sheet. Underneath was a weapon that looked like nothing any alien species had ever seen. It was sleek, silver, and hummed with dangerous energy. "This is the Prometheus Mark VII," Kate explained. "It can crack a planet in half or make a star explode. We've built 200 of them." Frank looked at the weapon with mixed feelings. He was proud of human cleverness, but sad that they needed to use it. "How long before we can deploy them?" he asked. "They're already deployed," Kate said. "Every human exploration ship carries one. Every colony has 5 hidden underground. We've been preparing for this day since we first met the Zelphic 50 years ago." Meanwhile, Colonel Sarah Blake was meeting with her Special Forces teams. These were soldiers that the galaxy had never seen. They had been training in secret for decades. "Listen up," Sarah said to the 100 men and women in the room. "The galaxy thinks humans are weak because we don't like to fight. They're about to learn that not liking to fight and not being good at fighting are two very different things." Sergeant Tom Wilson raised his hand. "Ma'am, what about the rules of war? The Galactic Council has agreements about how wars should be fought." Sarah's eyes were cold. "The Zelphic broke those rules when they targeted children. We'll follow one rule. We protect human lives. Everything else is optional." Captain Jake Morrison arrived on Earth that evening. He went straight to Admiral Davis's office. The two men looked at each other for a long moment. "How bad was it, Jake?" Davis asked. "Worse than the report said," Jake replied. "They didn't just kill people, Carl. They enjoyed it. They hunted children for sport." Davis nodded slowly. "The President has authorized me to tell you the truth about human space operations. Jake, your ship isn't really an exploration vessel." Jake looked confused. "What do you mean?" "The Hughes Horizon is a warship disguised as an exploration ship. So are all of our peaceful vessels. Your engines can go 3 times faster than you've been told. Your hull can take damage that would destroy a Zelphic battleship. And your cargo bay contains weapons that make nuclear bombs look like firecrackers." Jake sat down hard. "How long have you been lying to us?" "We weren't lying," Davis said. "We were hoping we would never need to use these capabilities. But we've been preparing for the worst since the day we met our first hostile alien species." Davis activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red dots marked Zelphic territory. Blue dots marked human space. But there were also green dots scattered throughout the galaxy. "What are the green dots?" Jake asked. "Human assets," Davis said. "For the past century, we've been placing monitoring stations and weapon platforms throughout the galaxy. The Zelphic Empire is surrounded by them. So is every other potentially hostile species." Jake stared at the display. "We've been spying." "On everyone?" "We've been preparing to defend ourselves against everyone," Davis corrected. "Jake, Humanity learned a hard lesson back on Earth. The price of peace is eternal vigilance. We've been vigilant. On the farming world of Riverside, something impossible was happening. The small, peaceful farming community was transforming. Buildings that had looked like barns were opening to reveal factories. Farmers were putting on military uniforms. Tractors were being converted into tanks. Director Chris Murphy had been the agriculture coordinator for Riverside. In reality, he was a military commander in charge of one of humanity's most important weapon manufacturing centers. "How long until we're at full production?" he asked his assistant. 6 hours, sir." The wheat fields were a good cover, but underneath, "We've got the most advanced weapons factory in the galaxy." All across human space, the same scene was playing out. Peaceful colonies were revealing their true purpose. Research stations were actually military command centers. Trading posts were weapons depots. Dr. Lisa Grant was studying the intelligence. Reports in her new office on Earth. She was no longer just a xenobiologist. She was now the head of Alien Species Analysis, a department that knew more about every alien race than those aliens knew about themselves. "Lisa," President Clark said, walking into her office, "I need to know everything about Zelfec biology. Everything." "Mr. President," Lisa said, "we've been studying them for 50 years. I know what they eat, how they sleep, what diseases they can catch, what sounds hurt their ears, what lights blind them, and what chemicals make them sick." "Good," Clark said. "Use that knowledge." Senator Maya Johnson had returned to Earth from the Galactic Council. She met with President Clark in his private office. "Done. The Council is panicking," she reported. "They expected us to beg for help or run away to hide. Instead, we've gone completely silent. Our ships have disappeared from their space. Our traders have stopped coming to their worlds. They don't know what we're planning." "Perfect," Clark said. "Fear is a weapon too." "The Zelfec are celebrating," Maya continued. "They think they've scared us into submission. High Commander Vextar gave a speech saying that weak species like humans should learn their place." President Clark smiled, but it was not a nice smile. "He'll learn his place soon enough." Fleet Captain Alex Green was preparing his stealth ships for their first mission. These vessels were invisible to all known alien sensors. They had been secretly watching alien military movements for decades. "Captain," his communications officer said, "we're receiving final authorization from Admiral Davis." "What are our orders?" Green asked. "Reconnaissance in force, sir. The Zelfec want to see what scared humans look like. We're going to show them." That night, invisible human ships appeared in orbit around the Zelfec capital world. They didn't attack. They just watched. And they made sure the Zelfec knew they were being watched. High Commander Vextar was in his palace when his officers brought him the disturbing news. "Sir, our sensors are detecting some kind of interference in orbit. It might be ships, but we can't see them." Vextar looked at the data. "Impossible. No species has invisibility technology. The interference patterns suggest at least 50 large vessels, sir." For the first time since the attacks on human worlds, Vextar felt worried. "Send a message to the human government. Tell them to recall their ships immediately." But when the message was sent, there was no answer. The human embassy was empty. All human diplomats had left Zelfec space. Admiral Tony White was commanding the main human battle fleet from his flagship, the U.E. Retribution. A fleet contained over 1,000 ships, each one more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "all fleets are in position. We have the Zelfec Empire completely surrounded." "How long until they realize it?" White asked. "They won't realize it until we want them to, sir. Our ships are still invisible to their sensors." White looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed Zelphic military bases and fleets. They were all marked with green targeting symbols. "Admiral Davis to all fleet commanders," came the voice over the communication system. "President Clark has given final authorization. Operation Righteous Fury is approved. Show them what happens when you make humanity angry." High Commander Vextar was having dinner when every alarm in his palace started screaming. He ran to his command center where his officers were in panic. "Report." He shouted, "Double quotes, sir. Human ships have appeared throughout our empire. Hundreds of them. They're not on any of our sensors, but they're broadcasting on all frequencies. What are they saying?" An officer played the message. It was Admiral Morrison's voice, calm and cold. "To the Zelphic Empire, you murdered our children. You destroyed our homes. You thought we were weak because we chose peace. Today, you learned the difference between choosing peace and being unable to make war. Surrender now, or face the consequences." Vextar's yellow eyes were wide with shock. "How many ships?" "We estimate over 2,000, sir. They have us completely surrounded." "That's impossible. Our intelligence said humans only had a few hundred." "Old ships. Apparently, sir, our intelligence was wrong." "There." The war began at exactly 0800 Universal Standard Time across 200 Zelphic star systems. Simultaneously, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, now revealed as the warship UE's Vengeance. Around him, his crew worked with deadly precision. These were not the same peaceful explorers from a week ago. They were soldiers who had trained for this moment their entire lives. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," he said into his communicator. "Remember New Eden. Remember the children. Make them pay." The first targets were the Zelphic military bases. Human ships dropped out of stealth mode directly above enemy installations. The Zelphic had no time to react. Weapons that had been disguised. As scientific equipment unleashed destruction beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. On the Zelphic world of Kethter, General Rick Stone's ground forces were landing. The Zelphic had thought their planet was safe because it was deep inside their empire. They were wrong. "Targets are the military installations only," Stone told his soldiers. "No civilians. We are not them." The human soldiers moved through the Zelphic city like ghosts. Their armor made them nearly invisible. Their weapons were silent but deadly. Within 2 hours, every Zelphic military base on the planet was destroyed, but not a single civilian was hurt. High Commander Vextar was in his command bunker, watching his empire fall apart in real time. Every few minutes, another star system went dark. "How is this possible?" he screamed at his officers. "Where did they get these ships, these weapons?" "Sir," his intelligence chief said, "we've been analyzing the human attacks. Their technology is at least 200 years ahead of ours. Maybe more. 200 years? That's impossible. We've been watching them for decades." "Apparently, sir, they've been watching us longer." Fleet Captain Alex Green's stealth ships were causing chaos throughout Zelphic space. They would appear without warning, destroy a military target, and vanish again. The Zelphic military was paralyzed by fear and confusion. "Captain," his tactical officer reported, "Zelphic High Command is trying to coordinate a defense, but we're jamming their communications." "Good," Green said. "Keep them confused. A confused enemy makes mistakes." Dr. Helen Brooks was running the psychological warfare operation from a secret base. Her job was to break Zelphic morale without killing civilians. "Broadcasting on all Zelphic communication channels," she reported to her team. "We're showing them footage of their military bases being destroyed. We're also broadcasting the recordings from New Eden, so they can see what their soldiers did to our children." The psychological warfare was working. Zelphic civilians were seeing the truth about what their military had done. Many were demanding that their leaders surrender. Admiral Tony White's main battle fleet was approaching the Zelphic capital world. The enemy had gathered their strongest ships to defend their homeworld. It would be the biggest space battle in galactic history. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "the Zelphic have assembled over 300 warships. They're the best ships in their fleet." "How many ships do we have?" White asked. 50, sir." White smiled. "That seems fair for them." The Battle of Zelphic Prime lasted exactly 17 minutes. The human ships moved like dancers, their weapons reaching out to touch enemy vessels with deadly precision. The Zelphic ships were tough and heavily armed, but they were fighting technology they didn't understand against enemies who had studied their every weakness. Captain Lisa Grant, now commanding her own ship, watched as Zelphic vessels exploded around her. She felt no joy in the destruction, only sadness that it had come to this. "Captain," her weapons officer said, "the Zelphic flagship is hailing us. Put it through." High Commander Vexstar appeared on her screen. The proud Zelphic warrior looked broken and defeated. "Human Commander," he said, "I request terms for surrender." Terms are simple," Lisa replied. "Unconditional surrender. Your entire military will be disbanded. Your war criminals will face trial. Your empire will be placed under human administration until you prove you can be trusted. And if I refuse?" Lisa's face was cold. "Then in 18 minutes, your homeworld will be uninhabitable for the next 1,000 years. We have weapons that make your worst nightmares look like children's toys." Vexstar looked at his tactical display. In the space around his homeworld, the wreckage of his fleet was still burning. 50 human ships had destroyed 300 of his best vessels without taking a single casualty. I surrender," he said quietly. But the war was not over. Across the Zelphic Empire, human forces were methodically destroying every military installation, every weapons factory, every ship. They did it with surgical precision, avoiding civilian casualties while making it clear that resistance was futile. Director Chris Murphy was coordinating the occupation of captured Zelphic worlds. His job was to make sure the transition was as smooth as possible for civilian populations. "Remember," he told his administration teams, "these people are not our enemies. Their leaders are our enemies. Treat civilians with respect, but make it clear that the old ways are over." On Earth, President Clark was receiving reports from across the galaxy. Other alien species were watching the destruction of the Zelphic Empire with growing fear. "Mr. President," Senator Maya Johnson reported, "the Galactic Council is requesting an emergency meeting. They want to discuss terms for ending the war." "Tell them the war will end when the last Zelphic war criminal is in custody," Clark replied. "Not before." "Sir, some council members are suggesting that other species might need to intervene to stop us." President Clark looked at Maya with eyes that had seen too much death. "Let them try." The message was clear to everyone in the galaxy. Humanity was no longer asking for permission. Colonel Sarah Blake's special forces had captured most of the Zelphic military leadership. They were being held in a secure facility on a human world, waiting for trial. "Colonel," one of her officers said, "High Commander Vexstar is requesting to speak with you." Sarah walked to Vexstar's cell. The once proud Zelphic leader was sitting on a simple cot, looking old and defeated. "What do you want?" Sarah asked. "I want to understand," Vexstar said. "How long have you been planning this? How long have you been lying to the galaxy?" "We weren't lying," Sarah said. "We were hoping that species like yours would choose to be civilized. You chose otherwise. But the ships, the weapons, the soldiers, where did they come from?" Sarah looked at the alien who had ordered the deaths of millions of humans. "We've been preparing for this day since we first left Earth. Every human child learns about the wars we fought on our homeworld. We know what happens when good people aren't ready to fight evil ones. You are never weak, Vexstar said, understanding finally dawning in his eyes. No, Sarah said, we were never weak. We were just trying to be better than our history. You made that impossible. The war was ending, but the consequences were just beginning. The galaxy had learned that humanity possessed technology and military capabilities far beyond what anyone had imagined. More importantly, they had learned that humans could be utterly ruthless when their families were threatened. Admiral Morrison was back on the bridge of his ship, now orbiting the ruins of the Zelthic capital fleet. His communications officer looked up from her station. Sir, we're receiving surrender messages from Zelthic commanders across the Empire. The last holdout systems are giving up, Morrison nodded. How long did it take? 72 hours, sir. From the first shot to complete surrender. 72 hours. An empire that had taken centuries to build had fallen in 3 days. Morrison thought about the children of New Eden and felt no satisfaction, only sadness that it had come to this. Sir, Lieutenant Kim Park said, Admiral Davis is requesting all fleet commanders to return to Earth for debriefing. Morrison looked out at the stars one last time. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had shown its true face, and that face was terrifying to those who chose to be their enemies. Across the galaxy, alien species were having emergency meetings. The Zelthic Empire, one of the most powerful military forces in known space, had been completely destroyed in less than 4 days. And humanity had done it while following rules of war that the Zelthic themselves had broken. On the water world of Aquatica, the dolphin-like Cetians were discussing what this meant for galactic politics. The humans could have killed every Zelthic civilian, their leader said. Instead, they only targeted military installations. They showed mercy even in their anger. That makes them more dangerous, not less, another Cetian replied. A species that can control itself during war is a species that can control the galaxy. The bird-like avians were having similar conversations on their sky cities. Their leader, a wise old creature named Keystak, spoke to his council. We have all made the same mistake, he said. We saw human kindness and assumed human weakness. We forgot that on their homeworld, humans were the apex predators. They dominated every other species on their planet. What do we do now? Asked a younger avian. We make sure we never give them a reason to be angry with us, Keystak replied. The war crimes trials began 1 month later. Judge William Hayes presided over the hearings on Earth. The whole galaxy watched as Zelthic leaders were forced to answer for their crimes. High Commander Vexstar stood before the court in chains. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Video recordings from New Ade. 2 years after the fall of the Zelthic Empire, the galaxy was a very different place. Ambassador Kelly Price walked into the rebuilt Galactic Council chamber. The room looked the same, but everything else had changed. Where once alien species had ignored human concerns, now they listened carefully to every word she said. The Human Federation has a proposal, Kelly announced to the assembled representatives. We want to create a galactic peacekeeping force to prevent conflicts before they start. The avian representative, Keystak, spoke first. What would be the structure of this force? Joint command, Kelly replied. Every species contributes ships and personnel, but humans provide the training and leadership. There was no argument. The species that had once thought humans were weak now understood that human leadership meant safety for everyone. Director Chris Murphy was now in charge of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. His headquarters was on a space station called Unity 2, built to replace the old Council station that had failed to prevent the Zelthic massacre. Sir, his assistant reported, we're receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim. The Morduc and the Vespian are fighting over mining rights. Chris smiled. Send Battle Group 7, and make sure they understand that we're not asking them to. Stop fighting. We're telling them. Battle Group 7 consisted of ships from 6 different species, but the commanding officer was human. Captain Steve Johnson took his mixed species fleet to the Outer Rim and ended the conflict with one simple message. Any species that chooses war over diplomacy will face the same fate as the Zelphic Empire. The fighting stopped immediately. On Earth, President Dan Clark was meeting with his military advisors. The burden of galactic leadership was heavy, but humanity had accepted it. Mr. President, Admiral Morrison reported, our intelligence networks report no major conflicts anywhere in the galaxy. Crime is down 70%. Trade is up 300%. And how do the other species feel about our leadership? Clark asked. Mixed feelings, sir. They respect us, but they're also afraid of us. Some love us for bringing peace. Others resent us for showing them how weak they really were. Clark nodded. Fear and respect are useful tools, but they're not enough. We need them to trust us. Doctor. Lisa Grant was working on that problem. As the new head of interspecies relations, her job was to show the galaxy that humans could be more than just warriors. We're sharing our medical technology with the Cetians, she reported to President Clark. Our agricultural techniques are feeding 3 billion hungry beings on the Outer Rim worlds, and our educational programs are helping primitive species develop faster. Good, Clark said. The galaxy needs to see that human strength comes with human compassion. Judge William Hayes had become the most important legal figure in the galaxy. His court now handled all major interspecies disputes. Beings who once might have gone to war now came to him for justice. Your Honor, the Vespian representative said during a recent case, the Mordic have been stealing our mining equipment. The equipment was abandoned, the Mordic replied. We found it and claimed it according to galactic salvage laws. Judge Hayes looked at both parties. The equipment will be returned to the Vespians. The Mordic will be compensated for their recovery efforts. Both species will share the mining rights to that system. Next case. It was simple, fair, and final. No one argued with Judge Hayes' decisions because everyone knew what happened to species that rejected. Human Justice. Fleet, Admiral Morrison was visiting the memorial on New Eden. The world had been rebuilt, but the memorial remained to remind everyone of the cost of hatred. A young human girl, maybe 7 years old, was placing flowers at the base of the memorial. Morrison knelt down beside her. What's your name? He asked gently. Emma Chun, she said. My grandmother Amy Roberts is on this wall. She died saving children. Morrison's heart felt heavy. Dr. Amy Roberts had become a symbol of human courage and sacrifice. She was a hero, Morrison told Emma. I want to be a doctor like her, Emma said. I want to help people. Morrison smiled. That's a good dream. The galaxy needs more people who want to help instead of hurt. As Emma walked away with her parents, Morrison thought about the future. The galaxy was peaceful now, but peace required constant vigilance. Humanity had become the guardians of galactic civilization, and that was a responsibility they could never abandon. High Commander Vextar was dead, executed for his crimes 2 years ago. But before his death, he had given an interview that was still broadcast across the galaxy. I thought humans were weak, he had said. I thought their kindness was weakness. I was wrong. Humans are not weak. They choose to be kind. And a species that chooses kindness while having the power to destroy you is the most dangerous enemy you can make. Those words had become famous across the galaxy. They reminded every species why the new galactic order worked. Colonel Sarah Blake was training the new peacekeeping force recruits. The base was on Luna, Earth's moon, and it welcomed soldiers from every species in the galaxy. Listen carefully, she told a group of new recruits that included avians, Cetians, and even former Zelthic soldiers. We are not conquerors. We are protectors. Our job is to keep peace, not to make war. A young Zelthic soldier raised his hand. Ma'am, how do we know when to use force? Sarah looked at the young alien who had once been her enemy. Force is always the last option. But when children are threatened, when innocents are murdered, when bullies think might makes right, then we remind them why the galaxy chose human leadership. The former Zelthic colonies were thriving under human administration. Governor Tom Miller had been put in charge of rebuilding Zelthic civilization. The key, he told his human and alien staff, is to teach them that strength comes from protecting others, not dominating them. Former Zelthic worlds were learning human values. Schools taught cooperation instead of conquest. Young Zelthic were growing up in a society that valued life instead of death. Governor, his Zelthic assistant said, there's a problem in Sector 7. Some older Zelthic are trying to start a rebellion. Tom sighed. Send a team to talk to them. Show them the recordings from the trials. Remind them what happened to the leaders who chose war over peace. The rebellion ended before it began. Most Zelthic had learned their lesson. Ambassador Kelly Price was giving a speech to the Galactic Council on the 2nd anniversary of the Zelthic War. 2 years ago, humanity was attacked by those who saw our peaceful nature as weakness. She sighed. Today, we live in a galaxy where such attacks are impossible. Not because we have removed the ability to make war, but because we have removed the desire to make war. She paused and looked around the chamber. The galaxy is safer now because every species knows that genocide has consequences. Attacking civilians has consequences. Choosing war over diplomacy has consequences. These are not human laws. These are civilized laws, enforced by civilized beings. The applause was enthusiastic. Even species that resented human dominance had to admit that the neat galaxy was better now. Dr. Frank Miller had retired from weapons development. His new job was finding ways to turn military technology into tools for peace. We've converted our planet cracking weapons into mining equipment, he reported to President Clark. Our stealth technology is being used for scientific research. Our battle computers are solving hunger, disease. What about the weapons themselves? Clark asked. Still there, still ready, Frank replied. Hidden but not forgotten. The galaxy needs to know that human strength hasn't disappeared. It's just sleeping until it's needed again. President Clark was preparing to step down from office. His successor would inherit the most powerful position in galactic history. The hardest part, he told the incoming president, is knowing when to use our power and when to hold back. The galaxy fears us, respects us, and needs us. But they also hate us a little for showing them how weak they really were. How do we handle that? The new president asked. By being better than they expect us to be, Clark replied. By proving every day that power in the right hands makes life better for everyone. Captain Jake Morrison had been promoted to Grand Admiral of the human fleet. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at a galaxy that his people now protected. Sir, his communications officer said, we're receiving a distress call from the far rim. Pirates are attacking a refugee convoy. Morrison smiled grimly. Set course for the far rim. Maximum speed. As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Morrison thought about how far humanity had come. They had been forced to abandon their peaceful ways, but they had not abandoned their humanity. They protected the weak, defended the innocent, and kept the peace. The galaxy had learned what happened when the species that invented nuclear weapons got truly angry. But they had also learned something else when that same species chose to be protectors instead of conquerors. The galaxy became a better place for everyone. The age of human peace was over. The age of human guardianship had begun. And the galaxy was safer for it. On New Eden, where it all started, children played in fields that had once been battlegrounds. They laughed and learned and grew up in a world where genocide was impossible because humanity stood watch. Emma Chun, the little girl who wanted to be a doctor like her grandmother, was studying hard in school. She would grow up in a galaxy where her dreams were possible because good people had be.